Hi everyone. So I wanted to make a quick video that's running through just the structure of the weekly learning section and the different weekly learning folders that you'll be looking at throughout the course. So here you'll see we're on the course homepage. Of course, in this section here, you'll be seeing some announcements shortly, but I'm going to go into our weekly learning section. So the weekly learning link is under the course content section in the navigation menu. So we'll go inside. One thing just to point out very quickly, there is a startup checklist at the top, so please make sure before you actually get into the content, you understand the course, you've gone through all of the different sections, the About Course section, the assignments, and make sure you really have a good handle on the course before we start getting into content. So in this section here, you'll see all of the weekly content folders. So for example, right now you have access to weeks 1 and 2. Like I said in my initial announcement, you're going to have access to 2 weeks of content at a time. So right now you have 1 and 2. Next week you'll have 2 and 3, and so on and so on. So what I'd like to do first, just this initial, in the weekly learning section, you'll obviously see the link to get into the folder, but just the information below that is just a really brief rundown of what exactly is inside that folder. This is also an area where I'll put any important notes for you to keep in mind. So for example, in week 2, the important note that I've put here is that the ad drop is by Friday, May 18th, by end of day then. So if you're thinking about dropping the course, then that would be the deadline that you're working with. So now I'll go inside the content folder. The first thing that you're going to see in each week is an introduction to the content that you're working with. So it'll give you a brief outline of what exactly the topic is, and also any things that you're going to need to submit that week. So for example, this week I'm asking you to identify the orientation quiz, and then so that's going to be the weekly assessment for that week. Okay. The next thing you're going to see are the learning objectives. So by the end of the week, you should be able to X, Y, and Z. So these will be different every week. Depending on the week, there may be more or less learning objectives, but they'll be listed there for you to review. The next area here is the weekly content section. So this is where all of the instructions for each week will be. It'll walk you through sort of point by point what you're expected to do. You'll also notice at the top, right under the heading, there is an attached files section. So if the instructions direct you to go download the attachment, these are obviously the attachments that we're talking about. So throughout this section, there'll be different instructions. They should be fairly straightforward, but if you have questions, make sure that you let me know. One thing that you may notice in different weeks, for example, in some of the videos or some of the articles that I'll have you read, I may list some questions. Those are things that you don't have to submit, but can help you just sort of keep track as you're watching the video, going through the reading, or can just be reflective questions once you finish the reading of the video. The next section that you'll run into most weeks is actually the weekly assessment section. I'll come back to that in just a moment, but in week 1 of the semester, I'm asking you to do a very brief introduction of yourself. So what program you're in, why you chose it, why you're taking this course, some of your past leadership experience, and then really any other information that you'd like to share with the class. It's really low stakes, it's not worth any marks, but it's just a nice opportunity for me to get to know you and also some of your classmates to get to know you as well. The last piece, the next piece here is the weekly assessments. So this could be a number of things depending on the week. This week I'm actually calling it an orientation quiz, but this could also be learning checks, which are essentially a quiz, but we're just calling them learning checks. It could be a discussion post and a reply to another student, or it could be a journal response. The instructions for the weekly assessment will be listed in this section. This week it's fairly short, other weeks they're a little more in depth, so please make sure you read those instructions carefully. But they should all have links similar to this, so it'll say weekly assessment and then the type of assessment that you're working with. So to access that, you just click on that link there. The last section here that I want to just highlight is the something to think about section. It's really just an area where I've listed different quotes that relate to the topic that we're talking about or leadership in general. Again, it's just something to get you thinking. Maybe it speaks to somebody in particular. They decide to use it in an assignment or in a weekly assessment. The last thing in each content folder, weekly learning folder, will actually be a summary. And it just highlights just a review of the things that we've done that week and leads you into next week. So that's sort of the basic structure for each week. A couple other things that you may notice in different weeks, specifically weeks where larger assignments are due, like the autobiography or the leader profile as an example. You will also see submission links for those assignments in the weekly content folders. The other area, of course, where you'll see those submission links are in the assignment section. So when you go through the assignment section, those submission links and the one in the content folders are the same. So you don't need to worry about submitting in both places. Just pick one and submit there. So again, that's the basic structure for each weekly learning folder. If you have any questions for me, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we'll talk to you very soon.